Xamarin Native, done a little bit of Xamarin Forms professionally, but mainly focused on Xamarin Native. There are a lot of major companies that are using Xamarin Native. Some Verizon, I don't know if you guys know of it, Spectrum, like there's a lot of big names and really highly rated apps that are using Xamarin, and which is a really good thing. And so there's a huge demand for Xamarin developers. I just moved from the United States in June, and comparatively, it's still growing over here. But today I want to talk about Android accessibility. I was supposed to speak last month, but circumstances, really terrible ones. Yeah, and so accessibility, there's basically two main functions when you're trying to make an application accessible. Whenever you're developing something, there's two things that you have to keep in mind. Only two things. The first thing is that user able to see all the information? Is he able to gather all that you're trying to tell that user from that application? So if you have a bank app, is a deaf user able to use it? You know, like, is he able to see everything? Yeah, so that means a deaf user would be able to see it. You know, is a colorblind user able to see it? So the first one, like I said, is gathering information. Is a blind user able to you know, gather the information, like see his balance, you know, make a transfer? The second thing that you have to keep in mind is, are they able to perform the functions that the app allows you to do? If you're paying a bill on the app, are the users able to pay a bill through the app? Or are the users able to make that transfer? So just two things that you have to keep in mind. First one is see all the information. Second one is able to perform the functions. So where does accessibility, you know, what lays down the framework for accessibility? Sadly, we don't really have a unified mobile you know, sort of organization that decides what constitutes accessibility. And we follow the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And basically Apple and Android, they have just gone through all those guidelines. There are like so many pages and pages of them. And they have decided, okay, you know, in order to meet the guidelines, these are things that we have to take care of. Because we're not a website, so we don't have to take care of all of those guidelines. There's just a few. And here's some of them that, or at least like the major ones. Very simple, easy to read text. Not everyone has a 20/20 eyesight, you know? And imagine if this text was blurry. Like, you know, would you be able to read it? No, you'd be like so annoyed, you would barely be able to read it. You know, you'd be like, this is the worst app ever, you know? So accessibility doesn't only have to do with like blind people or, you know, people with hearing impairments. And it's for everyone, you know, kind of like ramps when you're going to a hospital. Not only people who, you know, have a wheelchair use it, older people use it too, you know? So it's always about a lot of things put together. Third thing, dynamic font sizing. For people who have weaker eyesight, generally they will increase the size of the font on their phones. And so a lot of times we don't develop apps to where when you increase the size, all the fonts in the app also increase size. You know, it'll be like the entire app has like large fonts, but then your app has like the tiniest font, you know, so that's definitely inaccessible. Also, sometimes, you know, we overlook because the font size, when it's larger, the font will go outside the screen. So definitely people are not able to read it, so your app is inaccessible. And then there's guidelines for minimum tappable buttons or icon size. This is something that we usually overlook. You know, if there's a button or an icon, like an information icon, you know, there are guidelines that say this is the minimum you should have. And for iOS, because we're doing Xamarin, so we kind of go for the most conservative one. And iOS has a 44 pixel diameter minimum requirement. So if the information icon is smaller than 44 pixels, it is inaccessible, and you won't get kicked out from the App Store, but it's inaccessible. And it's like you only have to do a few things in order to be like one of the accessible apps, and you make people's lives so much easier, the people who actually require this. Minimum contrast ratio. So for black and white text, the contrast ratio is 21:1. I'm not 100% sure where they come up with the math for it, but that's basically what it is. And so there is a minimum contrast ratio for fonts against the background. You cannot have green and then dark green, like green text on a dark green background. Like, that's the worst, especially for colorblind people. And then enable TalkBack. So TalkBack is a functionality that is most often associated with accessibility. Dylan spoke about Xamarin Forms trying to make it more accessible for users, and they were mainly speaking about TalkBack. There might have been a little bit about dynamic font sizing, but it's primarily about TalkBack, and usually, more often, people use the two terms at the same time, when obviously, clearly, they're not the same. Accessibility is a whole wide list of things, but TalkBack is just one part of it. Today I'm going to dig into TalkBack because it's something that it's the more challenging one of them, and if you guys want details to any of them, like the links and things like that, I have it in the notes of the slide. So how do you activate TalkBack on your device? So initially, TalkBack was just an app that you download, but starting June 21st of last year, they made it a part of the Android Accessibility Suite. You download the app, Android Accessibility Suite, and then it gives you the ability to check TalkBack in the settings. So you just go to Accessibility, and it'll say TalkBack, and you can just check it, and you're done. So that's why it's also like number 3 trending. But essentially, if you don't have the app, you just download it, and then you'll be able to see it in the settings. And this is true for all modern Android devices. For TalkBack on your emulator, I know most of you use Visual Studio, and you're actually able to get TalkBack on your emulator. And this was a huge thing. We didn't know this was possible. So when we were able to do it, we were like, whoa, it's so cool. All you gotta do is go to your tools, device manager, you get to your device manager, edit that device, and allow Google Play Store. So this is are you guys able to see it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. You see how some of them have stuff next to it, and some of them don't have anything next to it. So the ones that have Google Play next to it are the ones that you can go to the Play Store and basically download the Android Accessibility Suite. So that's basically what I was saying. Now, basic gestures. When you have an app, when you have your TalkBack turned on, there's some basic things that you can do to go through it. It's they can't see, so they don't know exactly where to go. So they basically have to scroll through the items one at a time. I will give you guys a short demo of what it would look like. So basically what I did, go to settings, accessibility. I'm going to turn the volume. Is the volume turned up?
I don't know if it's because you're HDMI. Yeah, so that's probably still in the audio.
Oh.
Go into your audio settings and you can back and switch it back to sound. That's max sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, click on sound.
Sound. Oh yeah, that's true. Output.
Yeah, just click internal speakers. Yeah, internal speakers. Yeah.
All right, cool. So it's going to play the audio as if I'm using So it gets really annoying when you're doing like a talkback, when you're doing an accessibility story. But if I press left on my keyboard, it's like you're swiping left. So I'm going to press left right now. Okay.
Settings.
Hey.
Settings. On switch out of list. Press Alt plus enter to toggle. Settings. When TalkBack is on, it provides spoken feedback so that you can use your device without looking at the screen.
So it like reads out everything.
Who are blind or have low vision. To navigate using TalkBack, swipe right or left between items.
You know, and then there's an entire like thing. So and then whenever you want to press a button, you just select where, you know, the button that you're trying to select, and then you just double tap on the screen, and it'll go back. So it's selected the back button, so I just double tap anywhere on the screen and it'll go back, because the user doesn't know exactly where on the phone screen they are. You know, for them it's just like, oh, it's the back button. Okay.
Security and location, screen lock, fingerprint, in list 13 items.
Does that kind of make sense? It's like you basically, and it gives the sign double tap to activate. So it's like it says what exactly the item is, and then it says gives the option of what to do. So basically, you know, I explained that over here. I'm saying, hey, you know, these are the basic gestures. If you swipe right, you move to the next item. Swipe left, you move to the previous item. And then if you double tap, it actually opens that page up. And then you can swipe up or down in order to change the speed of your talkback. And then these are like more advanced gestures. If you want to go to the home screen, you know, swipe left and up, swipe right and up. And then you can like pull to refresh too. So in terms of, so that's like more testing focused. You know, for QA devs, they have to basically make sure that the app is accessible. You know, that people are able to click on buttons when they double tap. They're able to hear that double tap to activate, you know, in order to open that other page. And then if it's a link, it says, you know, open this page link. It'll give you a hint. So who here uses Xamarin Native? Xamarin Native? Xamarin Native? All right, a few people use Xamarin Native. This is more deeper into the code. Android provides a library in its accessibility class, and essentially, if you open a page, you can make it focus somewhere. So if you generally, whenever you open a screen and you want it to go to a certain part of the screen to start, all you got to do is say, you know, announce, and it goes through the context and sees where exactly you want it to go. It finds the exact view, and it, you know, makes the announcement, basically accessibility event, obtain, and then event announcement. So this is more, you know, we abstracted the announcement into a static class, a utility class essentially, and then, you know, focus. So basically you want to focus somewhere, because the focus and announcement are two separate activities. You can focus on something and it doesn't announce, and you can announce something and it doesn't focus. For example, if you go to a different screen and you want the user to know what screen they're going to, you can say announce, and then the billing page, and then it'll know. The user won't know that they're in the billing page now. And especially if you have an image, images generally don't have text. Like when you develop code, you know that images just have the image source file. They don't really have, you know, it doesn't describe what the image does. You know, you can have the glyph icon for information, but the user doesn't know, because he can't see that it's an information button. So we actually like tell it to announce that. For example, in our example, what we did is whenever you clicked on the right button, whenever you go to the next page in a calendar, we wanted it to focus on the day, the month and the year. So as soon as you click on, you know, the right arrow, we wanted the user to hear December 2018. So we'd focus December 2018 and we'd announce December 2018. So it's just stuff that it's easy for, you know, us to do these things, but for a user, he doesn't know exactly what's going on. In this particular case, that's exactly what I'm showing over here. I'm saying, hey, as soon as you click on the next month, if you notice over here, click next month, and then it'll, you know, change the page, but it'll also announce the current month.txt and it'll focus on the current month. You know, and like I have this presentation up. I'll share it with you guys on my GitHub so you guys can see it. And then content description. This is like really good for you guys to implement. Like, it's something that's simple to do, makes a ton of difference. So the right arrow over there was no content description like the like this one. It would just say IC underscore cone or something like that. And the same for the left arrow. It would say IC underscore cone Y. You know? So the user is like IC underscore cone, November 2018, IC underscore cone Y. What's going on? So all you gotta do is set a content description on the image. You know? So we just set the content description to text next month button. That's it. You know? And it makes a world of a difference for users. Yeah, sometimes it'll even say unlabeled image, you know? So it's very simple for users like us to actually implement. Just look for like content description or hint or stuff like that. Important for accessibility. So for people who have like touched AXML, I know there are not a lot of people, but they're basically properties. Like there's a text property for the control, there's the gravity, style, things like that, and then there's just important for accessibility. Is this element important for accessibility or not? So we, you know, according to accessibility standards, we don't want to read the days of the week. You know, as soon as you go to November 2018, you know it's November 2018. The user doesn't need to, you know, when you swipe right, what's the point of going through Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then going to the days? You know, that's definitely not important for accessibility. Yeah, it would make sense if every time you went on this, it would say 5th November, Monday, you know? But that's not what was going on. So we basically just set important for accessibility to false, to no. So it's pretty simple stuff. You know, it's not very complicated, but it makes a huge difference. So then there's another thing called Accessibility Manager. What we noticed is, we had an issue that was just breaking our heads. It was like, we had implemented this calendar view. Calendar views, for those of you who have touched Android, they're not native to Android. And so what happens is that you have to make it from scratch. And when you make something from scratch, you have to take into account accessibility as well. But a lot of people don't. People suck. So you just use these libraries, and they suck with accessibility. And then you have this application that when you test it with an accessibility tester, they're just like cross. So what we noticed when we were digging through it, that YouTube, for example, if your accessibility is on, if your TalkBack is on, it changes the view from this. This is what the standard view that we see, isn't it? So it changes the view from this to this for accessibility users, and it always keeps this screen there because they're not really watching, they're mostly hearing. So it keeps the screen there, and they can actually skip 10 seconds forwards, 10 seconds back. And so the accessibility manager helps us do that, where it just checks to see whether or not accessibility is on. If it's on, then hide something, you know? So if you look at it, it doesn't say the date. It used to say date Monday, November 5th. It doesn't say that anymore. So we just hid it because, you know, there was an issue over there. So, and then live regions. Sometimes when you have a form and you fill out the wrong month, you fill out the wrong phone number. You know, you have 11 digits instead of just 10. So what you can set the live region for text field, and it to true or to what? Yeah, polite. And there's a few different assertive, polite, and non. So that it will give you an error message and it'll announce that error message if it's displayed. So it'll say, oh, you know, you filled out 11 digits, fix it. You know, so it's pretty neat that way. And then there's the accessibility delegate. All views have their own accessibility delegate. You can override that, and it'll override the default functionality of that view. So you can go really, really deep. That's all I had to present in terms of the presentation. I'll show a quick video. The audio will be kind of soft, so just bear with me. Come on, where's my kid? Here. I wasn't sure which one to present. I was like, should I present Apple Business Chat or should I present Android Accessibility? So I just chose Android Accessibility.
It's really useful.
Thank you. So this basically, it has the presentation, and I placed a video link here. So I'm going to expand, and so you guys are aware what's going on over here. I kind of explained it with the PDF, but you guys can hear it now. So what I'm trying to do is I'm basically trying to make sure that when you go to the previous month, it focuses and announces November 2018.
Previous month button. Cell this previous month button. December 2018. Previous month button. November 2018. Cancel. Payment amount. Payment date the 6th of November. November 2018. Pager description.
Yeah. So basically, it focused on. It announced November 2018. As soon as you open the payment date, it announced November 2018 is the month that you're looking at, and it's going through the different days of the month. Okay. Quickly, I know a lot of people use Xamarin Forms, so I was like, okay, let me bring in some Xamarin Forms because you guys like Xamarin Forms. Sadly, I don't want to get you guys too excited. So Xamarin Forms, an a11y Toronto meetup as well. Let's see. Yeah, none. Oh. Yeah. So you guys notice that Xamarin Forms did, by default, say, hey, welcome to Xamarin Forms button, double tap to activate. But nothing else is accessible on this page. You can't tap on the text over there or on the image specifically by itself. So it's bad accessibility by default. Yeah, it definitely needs to be fixed if it's Xamarin Forms. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you. Any questions? Random?
So that blog post that was announcing it, when was it from?
That was a while ago. 2016? Yeah, 2016. Yeah, I know.
It sucks that it doesn't work.
Yeah. So really quick about iOS accessibility is very different, and it's kind of more complicated, but it's its own its own ball game. Yeah. So yeah, you can have an accessibility expert, but not an iOS expert for accessibility. Like in my previous project, there was a guy, he was really, really good at iOS, like Swift, Objective-C, he'd done it all, and he was master coder. But when it came to iOS accessibility, he just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, and then I gave this presentation on Android accessibility to them, and he was taking up Android accessibility stories after that. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, let me finish this off. So he was doing Android accessibility stuff, but still no iOS. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions? No? All right, thank you.
We're still streaming.
Is it still up? It is still up.
Yeah.